This is Mike Greenberg. Let's talk the biggest stories in sports weekday mornings at 10. San Antonio Sports Star, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 1250.
Cousins back, no rush, now flushed by Parsons, caught by Parsons, and sacked and fumble. Minute 5.5. Cousins back, pressure, Parsons got it. Just go down, Kurt. Just don't hurt yourself.
Yeah.
Second sack for Parsons.
I like that. That is Brad Sham on the call with the Dallas Cowboy Radio Network, of which we are a proud member. We'll welcome on the well-rested and probably heavily caffeinated Brad Sham. Welcome on the show, sir. How are you feeling this morning?
Well, you were half right. I'm actually you're about a quarter right, because I'm only about 3/4 of the way through my first cup. Well rested is not going to happen till, God willing, Friday. But that's I've done it before, so I know how it works.
So, Brad, what time's the flight land this morning?
We actually, the pilot made great time. We were probably on the ground. They also did a good job getting everything packed up on the plane real fast. We were probably touching down at about 10:30 last night.
Wow.
Oh, that's good time.
And yeah, it is. Now, by the time you get your bags, you get home, and then I've got work to do, putting together the network Cowboy report and going through some things. Probably a little after 1 when I got to bed. That's a little later than usual for me, but it's
Tis the
in
season.
about 2 hours. We'll be back at the Star, all of us who cover them for the open locker room. So it's just a short week.
Brad, you've seen a lot of Cowboy defenses. I hate to put you on the spot, and I know you've seen so many, but where does this one rank?
Well, we got to finish the season before we say that,
Okay.
because it's already kind of had a couple of little changes throughout the course of the year. But I mean, they're good. There's no question they're good. I think it's really hard to compare them to what they did in the 70s and what they did in the 90s, because the rules are different. So once upon a time, you had to cover. You needed the secondary to cover to get your pass rush. But now you have to rush. You've got like 2.5 seconds. And you got to get there in order for them to have a chance to cover, because defensive backs can't do to receivers what they once upon a time did. And, when Drew Pearson played, I swear there were some of those guys were carrying a tire iron, and nobody cared very much. But now you can't, breathe on them. So it requires different things, and it's hard to compare different eras, but they have flexibility. They've got, Parsons is the best example of a guy who can do more than one thing really well. I think their safety group is deeper than it's been in quite some time. And I'm not sure. I thought this in training camp. They've had times when they've had two good safeties. Obviously, when they won the Super Bowls in the 90s, they had a couple of good players. I'm not sure that I wouldn't have to go back to in the late 70s
Like
when they
Cliff
had
Harris years, those?
Cliff Harris, Charlie Waters,
Yeah.
and Randy Hughes, and who I thought Randy Hughes, for me, was the MVP of the Super Bowl in New Orleans, that Harvey Martin and Randy White were the co-MVPs. But Hughes had 2 or 3 takeaways. Anyway, they've got 3 safeties now who can play. And I think that they've got some depth throughout the defense from front to back. And obviously Dan Quinn's doing a great job of how he's utilizing his personnel. So it would be a disservice to the teams that went to championships and won some in the 70s and the 90s to compare this one to it, because they haven't even made the playoffs yet. But when the season's over, we can look back and talk and say, okay, that one ranks with those.
He is
That's
Brad
fair.
Sham. He's a Texas Radio Hall of Famer, 11-time Texas Sportscaster of the Year, and been in your living room more than you have. More, I would bet, as you listen to Dallas Cowboys for years with him. In order of importance, Brad, what was the most important thing the Dallas Cowboys did last night to win? And then what was the second? What led the way? Was it offense? Was it defense? Was it complimentary football? What did they do in your mind that was primary to getting what they did.
You know, especially in today's game, I always think complementary football is first, and you just see it all the time. So the offense, for instance, was able to be tremendously efficient, partly because the defense went out and got them the ball right away and did a really good job against a team that had been red hot. But for me, the one thing that jumped out more than others was the offensive line. I've never heard of scoring the first 7 times you have the ball. No Cowboys team had ever done that. And so they scored points 7 times in a row. Quarterbacks 20 of 25 passing, or 22 of 25. Now, is that on the – yes, quarterback was tremendous, and he had a couple of great catches. CeeDee Lamb on the sideline with his tiptoe, and Michael Gallup made a cut. All of that was great. And obviously, Pollard and Elliott were just exactly what you would draw them up to be. But none of that happens without the efficiency with which the offensive line played. I will go back and watch the tape, but I can really only think of one time that I thought that Prescott was under duress. And then opening the holes in the running game, I just thought the offensive line was the group that set the tenor for how everything went. Now, the defense was on the field first, and they got the ball right away, and that's pretty good. And then they kept that up. But the offensive line, to me, that was number one.
Brad, don't hang up on me when I ask you this, but with that said, and what Mike McCarthy said about the offensive line, and then what you just said about the offensive line, when Tyron Smith is healthy, do you just give him his job back?
When Tyron Smith is healthy, he's a Hall of Fame player.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know of many teams good enough to keep Hall of Fame players out of the lineup. He is probably going to come back with maybe a month to play. And the only situation at all like this in the offensive line that I can remember, I'll get the year wrong, but it was somewhere around 2009. They won division. Mark Colombo was the conscience of that offensive line, and he was the right tackle. And he got hurt, and he missed most of the season. And they won the division, and they actually went to Minnesota. And they came back, and Doug Free had played really exceptionally well in Colombo's absence. And they put him, and Colombo came back, but now we're talking about the playoffs. And Colombo was ready for the playoffs, and they put him back in instead of Free, and that didn't go well. And the Vikings kind of had a little bit of a day like the Cowboys did last night. This is not that. Because,
okay.
Because first of all, Tyler Smith practiced at guard all summer. He didn't play any tackle until, I know he did in college, but by the time he got up here, he spent all training camp playing guard. And so now Tyron gets hurt at the end of camp, and they asked the kid to slide back out. And his growth has just been phenomenal. And obviously, Tyron doesn't have many more years. And Tyler Smith has proven now that his future is going to be as the left tackle. But if Tyron Smith is ready to play, and I do trust this staff, I trust McCarthy and Philbin and Jeff Blasco, the assistant offensive line coach, to be able to assess team chemistry and to know what they're working with. And if they say that Tyron is ready to play, and they won't put him back in, they've already demonstrated it with Prescott and Elliott. They're not going to put him in until they think he's absolutely ready to play. Now, when he's ready to play, he makes you better. So you put him at left tackle, and you put Tyler Smith at left guard, which will make him better playing next to Tyron. If he gets to play into the playoffs, it'll make him better going forward. And there's something about Tyron. He's got a presence. Now, I admit I'm a huge fan of his personally. We're pretty good friends, and I just love the guy. But he's got a presence. Now, when he's on the field, everybody notices.
Brad
Right.
Sham, the voice of the Dallas Cowboys, right here
Great
on
answer.
San Antonio Sports Star.
Great
And
answer.
it's hard to fathom that this would have ever been a question, 2 months ago.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes, there's a lot of things that are hard to fathom.
Well,
were you guys in were you guys in Oxnard?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So were you among the group that were dodging Jonathan Garabay's attempted field goals?
Yes. We
One
witnessed
of them
4 or
almost
5 of
hit
those.
me.
Yes.
One of them almost hit me, Brad. So absolutely.
There you go. I remember that. Okay, there you go.
So with that in mind, where we were and where we are, was last night McCarthy's best game as a Cowboy?
McCarthy?
Yeah.
Well, his best coaching job
coach game as a Cowboy?
Well, that I would have to look back. They had a couple of wins last year that were pretty good. He did a great job. He does a good job. He knows his team really well. That's the first thing I asked him on our pregame show yesterday. He has a tremendous. I don't know. The answer to your question is I don't know that, because I'd have to go back and think about all of them. But he read the mood of his team. He knew that they were not pleased with themselves after the fourth quarter in Green Bay, and he knew that they were right to not be pleased with themselves. And so he helped guide them through a kind of a soul searching that allowed them to grow together. And then there's a lot of things that happen in the game that made coaching the actual game easy. But I think that the coaching part that happens from Monday through Saturday, it would certainly have to be one of his better games.
And now, in your experience, Brad, how is it for both teams trying to get ready on this short week for such a big game?
It's hard. It's really hard. Hell, it's hard for me. I'm not hitting anybody.
I know that's right.
And so the Giants were at home, but they've got to travel on Wednesday. You don't have the time that you'd like to have to prepare and put in game plans. When the game was a lot simpler, the players used to enjoy one thing about Thanksgiving, and there were only 2 games on Thanksgiving. Everybody wasn't playing on Thursday all year long. And what the players used to say was that what they liked about Thanksgiving was, yes, it was physically difficult, but there was so little time to prepare that the coaches could not overload them with tricks and gimmicks, and they just could go play. Excuse me. It's physically a difficult thing to do. But now that everybody does it, plays on Thursday, they know how to lie to their bodies. I mean, we're talking about guys now. I ask players this all the time. Most of them don't feel right until Thursday or Friday in the week. So that means, so today is Monday and it's Thursday. And tomorrow is Wednesday. And Wednesday is Friday and Saturday. They have to lie to their bodies. When their bodies tell them, I hurt today, they have to say, no, you don't. You think you do, but you don't, because it's not the right day to hurt. And so that's hard to do. And I think that the trick is to be in a good frame of mind so that you can get the work done that you have to do during the week, and then go out on Thursday and pretend it's Sunday and play the game. And when you are in a race, so that's number one. We've all seen Cowboy teams where, and bless the Detroit Lions' hearts, they've been doing this for most of their years, because they play on Thanksgiving every year too, and they're almost always out of it. When you're in a race, it's a little easier. When you're in a race and coming off a game like they're coming off of last night, and it's a division game, then you know that you've really got a reason to focus. These guys remember, I think, and I think a lot of us forget, last year they were flying, and they went to Kansas City the Sunday before Thanksgiving.
I remember that.
And they got knocked sideways, and then they came home and they played the Raiders in one of the worst officiated games I've ever seen, and they lost that game. And I don't think they ever really got their legs back up under them after that. Well, here they are coming off a game, and I don't remember what happened the week before Kansas City, but I'm pretty sure they won. Now, here they come coming off the Green Bay game, and they have that game. Well, maybe they're going to beat the Giants in a difficult division game, because division games always are. And maybe we'll look back and say that's where the season really solidified and turned positive for them after Green Bay. But those players remember it. I'll promise you, because I talked about them last night.
Right. Any injuries we should be concerned about? Any worries with Micah? We saw him go back in after he got dinged up, but you see anything post game?
Well, post game they're never ready to say.
Right.
I didn't see anything serious. We'll get to hear from McCarthy at 3:00 this afternoon. I don't expect anything, but you never know. The trainers need to get to him. Parsons did say to reporters after the game that he thought he'd be fine for Thursday.
Were you surprised he went back in?
A little bit. The way he walked off, I mean, it looked like he got rolled up on, but he's young and strong. He's got a few superpowers in there.
So are you, Brad.
He'll probably play Thursday. He'll probably be fine. And then I don't know what Penn State's doing over the weekend, but we'll see him pop up at their game over the weekend sometime.
Well, Brad Sham, the voice of the Dallas Cowboys. You're a vet at this, not your first rodeo. It is the stretch that includes that Thanksgiving Thursday. We look forward to the call that you can catch right here on San Antonio Sports Star. Hey, thanks for setting the alarm for us this morning, Brad. We look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks. Hello to everyone. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody in San Antonio.
You too, Brad.
Same to you.
Happy Thanksgiving to Brad Sham, the voice, which you will catch live on Thanksgiving right here on San Antonio Sports Star.